Well, earlier on in the show, we spoke to the South African Democratic Teachers Union, or SADTU, about the Department of Basic Education statistics, which indicate that 775 schools had to close and that 523 learners and 1,169 staff members had been infected with COVID-19. And that during that interview, the union said the schools shouldn't close. However, other unions seek to differ, and perhaps SADTU also not completely opposed to the idea, because as they said, in the Eastern Cape, they would still go along with what their provincial chapter said with regard to the closing of schools there. Well, the Educators Union of South Africa, or EUSA, say that schools should shut their doors in order to save lives. The National Teachers Union, or NATU, stated that the department should be held accountable for these figures and the infections that we are seeing. So joining us now, I know we do have Mr. Andre du Bruyn from EUSA. So let's speak to him first. Mr. du Bruyn, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and a very good morning to everybody there and to all of you.
Let me start by just gauging your thoughts on the figures of infection that the Department of Basic Education released.
Yeah, Sakina, I mean, you said that 523 learners, 1,169 staff members, and in 3 weeks, 775 schools have been closed. And this has only been 3 weeks. And now the Department of Basic Education wants to add millions to that. We think it's going to be a catastrophe, and it's nothing less than genocide being committed by government. We were the only union that never adopted its stance. From the beginning, we said schools should not close at the time when the pandemic should not open, at the time when the pandemic is still on an upward curve and trying to reach its peak. We took the Department of Education to court, the only union to do that. The 2nd of June, a postponement was asked, and the 9th of June, it was scrapped because an urgent application could not be given due to the fact that the schools opened the 8th and we were there in court the 9th. So last week, we appealed that judgment. So we're going to take Gogo and Zelina to court again. We will keep on fighting. Wednesday and Thursday, we have a stay away, and we ask all teachers and all parents to take part in this, because we need to highlight the plight. We are willing to work with any organization that helps us to save lives.
So, just with regard to the return of more learners to school, you were opposed to the first batch of learners, that's the grade 12s and 7s returning. So I take it you remain firm in that stance that no learners should return to school.
Sakina, our stance is still the same. You cannot open schools at a time when the pandemic looks like this. And we're forced to start to ask tough questions. We're asking questions as EUSA. I mean, we're asking questions like, are teachers and learners not maybe collateral damage for something else? We're asking the public protector to have a full independent investigation to the PPEs. You all know about how inflated the prices were. So we're starting to ask tough questions on why the Department of Education is so adamant and arrogant in opening schools and putting the lives of teachers and learners at risk. Because this is too risky to add young kids into the mix that will not keep on their masks for the whole day. We've seen it everywhere. When schools are out, what happens? Learners, they walk together, they stand together. I mean, this morning, Santiago wants to put taxis, wants to have 100% taxi load. We have learners in those taxis. So I mean, it's okay to say there are safety protocols, but there were no handbook for this. There were no textbook for this. There were no manual for this. It was thought up and it was just put there to guide us, but there's no safety for our teachers. There are no safety for our learners. And this is too risky to get millions of other kids into the mix. EUSA's stance is still the same. We will fight for the lives of every teacher and of every learner. And we want people out there who suffered a tragedy to keep Gogo and Zelina personally accountable for the for that tragedy, as well as all those who were complicit in opening the schools. It's okay to say we need to take things into revision now. It's too late. Those things should have been taken into revision before schools open. I mean, there are schools, 500 schools doesn't have water. So we need to seriously say the system is not ready. But why? We're asking the question, why is the Department of Education so adamant in getting the people to school?
So I do believe we have Alan Thompson from NATU on the line as well. Alan, good morning. And just gauging your response to what has happened thus far, the infections. And I see as NATU, you actually said that the department needs to take responsibility for what is happening in schools and the infection rates.
Yeah, well, good morning, Sakina. I'm very sorry that we have some technical problem, but as the National Teachers Union, we are very much concerned about the statistics, the numbers that indicates that teachers are infected, also some learners are also infected. The problem we believe that is that the department up to now has failed to take a full responsibility. Why are we saying that? Because when we agreed on the reopening of schools, there are specific terms that we said must happen so that everything will move smoothly. We are very disappointed that we are finding ourselves now having the number of teachers being infected, the number of learners being infected, when the provinces announce wrong numbers of schools that are ready to reopen. We have seen schools that are without water, where teachers were told that why do they need water because they have hand sanitizers. And they opened those schools. We have schools that were open without being properly fumigated. We have schools that opened without the hand sanitizers. So all those things, they contributed into these statistics we are seeing right now. So which means the department deviated from what we agreed upon as SADTU, as NATU, as NAPTOSA, as SAOU, as PEU, because we all agreed on specific terms, but we saw the Department of Basic Education deviating from that. On top of that, Sakina, if I can also put this better, right now we are having teachers who are being overstretched because we were promised that every class is going to have a maximum of 20 learners. And unfortunately, right now we are seeing schools that are having more than 20 learners in one classroom. We are seeing teachers who have never been trained to teach in the high school, who are having, because it's a combined school, who are having the primary school qualification. They are being forced to go and teach grade 12. The department is now refusing to employ substitute educators and additional educators because we have reduced the class size. We have more than enough number of suitably qualified educators who can easily fill the gap of those teachers who are having comorbidity and the morbidity, and also those teachers, the reduction of the class size. But all those things are not happening. We are not seeing replacement of teachers. We are not seeing employment of additional teachers. We are not seeing submissions or the supply of masks. Hence, other schools, in KZN alone, we have more than 200 schools that right now are closed with both grade 12 and grade 7. In Mpumalanga province, we have almost 100 schools that are also closed with both grade 7, and they have a problem of bare minimum requirements, supply of water, clean toilets. They do not have those things. So those are the critical issues we are finding ourselves in.
And the numbers that I've heard from SADTU and now from NATU and EUSA, in stark contrast to what the department's Director General gave us last week. But that's a story for another day. We are out of time, but I'm going to ask both of you very briefly whether you will be asking your members to return to school as the other grades are expected to return in this phased-in approach. Let me just very briefly get your responses to that, starting with you, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, Sakina, we were never properly engaged about phase 2 by the Department of Basic Education. There is a meeting today. We'll be engaging them. During the weekend, there was a meeting of the technocrats where we clearly indicated that we have never been properly consulted. We thought before we move to phase 2, we will take stock and see where we are and how do we deal with the problems that manifested themselves during phase 1. So at this stage, we will wait for the meeting to make pronouncement. What is it that will be done before we can agree on moving to phase 2? Because we do not want schools to be the
All
new
right.
epicenter for propagation of the new infection.
Thanks, Mr. Thompson. We're out of time. Andre?
Thank you.
Sakina, our stance is clear. We are not going to allow our members to put their lives at risk. And we don't want parents to put the lives of their children at risk. We were not one of those unions and the DBE who sold teachers down the COVID river. We were fighting for this thing from the beginning. Do not open schools now, because your child and my child and the teachers are so important. A dead teacher cannot teach, and a dead learner cannot learn. We need to take stock of everything and say, we need to stop this bus, be it the COVID bus.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Alan Thompson was from NATU and Andre du Bruyn there from EUSA, talking to us about the number of COVID-19 infections currently in schools. Well, that brings us to